what is one nonpartisan goal for this election season?
Yes. So welcome everyone. I'm letting some more folks in. I just let folks in that I would love to see yourself being introduced in the chat. We're putting our first names, our pronouns, our organization or affiliation, and what is one nonpartisan goal for this election season during the primaries. And Petra will put in an example of what we're looking for in the chat for all the folks joining over the phone. And another quick announcement is today, I want to see your beautiful faces. I want to hear your voice. This is very interactive, so be ready to have some fun. So I will share my screen and let me know if you're not able to see it. Okay. 1 second. Okay. Well, if you found yourself in the Zoom, we are at voter outreach training with Thrive Alliance and our community partners. And hopefully you're in the correct room and at the right place at the right time. Welcome everyone. My name is Yahaira Ortega. I am Thrive's Policy and Equity Manager and very excited to be here with you today. I am joined by my colleague Petra and some other friends. Diane, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yep, sure. I'm Diane Leeds. I'm with San Francisco Peninsula People Power and co-chair with Yahaira of the Voter Education and Outreach Advisory Commission or Committee.
Yes. And we also are joined by Andrea. If you'd like to introduce yourself,
Hi everyone, my name is Andrea Gill. My pronouns are she and her. I'm with Youth Leadership Institute, and we're going to talk later about how we build a social media campaign around voter engagement.
Awesome. And we also have the elections office here.
Hi, that's me, Sarah.
Sarah O'Brien is our representative who we work with through the elections office for the VOC that Diane mentioned and some other efforts. So thank you all for being here. Let's get started. And if you have any questions during this presentation, feel free to put them in the chat and I will try to monitor. But if not, Petra, feel free to uplift them, or Diane for myself. See, and then we'll have time at the end for some Q&A. We can ask some questions live. Okay, let's move on. All right, so who are we? Thrive is the Alliance of Nonprofits for San Mateo County. If you have not been familiar with us before, I'd love to tell you that our motto is that we like to strengthen people, strengthen organizations, and strengthen communities through capacity building, cross-sector collaboration, and policy and advocacy. And that's where you can find me most of the time. And I want to tell you before we get in, what other things is Thrive up to? So on January 29th at 3 p.m., we are all getting together. Hopefully you will be there to learn a little bit more about Advocacy 101, transforming nonprofits into effective change makers. If this sounds like your calling, go to thrivealliance.org. Petra will put in the chat our link to our website. You can find any of these events that I will talk through on our website. If you're interested in advocacy, join us in person to learn from others and learn from our beautiful consultants who will just give a training on how you can get involved. It's for anyone that has ever thought about it and may not have the tools or the partnerships in place yet to make things happen or advocate on behalf of the organization. So hope to see you all there. Next, we are hosting candidate forums at Thrive. This is one of our favorite things to do during election season when we like to inform our constituents and our communities about who's running for what position. So as you all know, there's an election for Supervisor District 4. We'll have a candidate forum on Tuesday, January 30th, along with our partners, Leadership Council, and others. And the purpose of our candidate forums is to uplift the issues of the nonprofit sector.
Yahaira, excuse me, one quick question on the forum you're talking about on the 30th. I don't find anything on your website that shows the location of where that's happening.
That is correct. You have to register for
I
forum.
did register and I still did not get a location.
You will get that as soon as possible. And I asked, please put your questions in the chat for us to be able to move forward with this training as quickly as possible. I want you to get to the good stuff. So please put your questions in the chat, and I'm happy to answer those as I go. Okay. We are also co-hosting a Citizens Climate Lobby, Climate Solutions District for Congressional District 16. If you're also interested in this race, join us virtually for this with our other partners on February 1st at 7 to 8:30 p.m. And there's 2 forums happening. That's what's a little confusing, but go to our website and you'll find all the information on this one. Okay, next, we're hosting another candidate forum solely to talk about issues on children. So if you're interested in this, we are having all the candidates running for Board of Supervisor races. Join us together on Monday, February 5th, 5:30 to 7. We are co-hosting this with Choose Children SVCF. Let's move on to the next one. And lastly, I want to invite you to our Summit for Partnerships in Education. This is anybody working on education issues or wants to work with folks in the education nonprofit sector. Join us on this summit, and you can find more information in our website. Lastly, our COAD, which is Thrive Rise, and they are an emergency response. It's not a department, but somebody who my Thrive colleague runs the Thrive Rise initiative at Thrive, and what that means is that she focuses her efforts on getting folks together, coordinating for emergency responses. And this event on February 21st is allowing folks to coordinate staff roles in disaster. So an introduction to incident command system for organizations. More information on thrivealliance.org. And let me see, no questions yet. Okay, let's move on. Thrive, each publicized location. Okay, I see your question, Bill, about location. You'll get that information in the follow-up email, hopefully very soon. Please be patient with us. Okay, let's get into our election education toolkit. And as I said, this is going to be very interactive, so I hope to hear from you all. So what is our election education toolkit? It is outreach materials to help nonprofit organizations educate their community on the primary election. Basically, what it is that Thrive puts together election materials, we print them out and hand deliver them to organizations involved, and we make it really easy for you all to get involved with elections and getting the right information to your community. And you can sign up. I'll put the Excel sheet in the chat after my presentation. Let me know. Please fill it out if you're interested at the end of this, if you're interested in the toolkits. And who is it from? So this toolkit is sponsored by Silicon Valley Community Foundation, and it's created by Thrive, along with community partners like Diane and the Elections Office. And what kind of support do we offer? Besides the toolkit, we also have limited stipends, which is $1,500 for organizations who are eligible for the stipend. You can get a stipend and a toolkit, or you can be an organization who just gets the toolkit. Wherever you land on that, you will still get the toolkit, and we offer them in a variety of languages. So please let me know in the Excel what languages you would need for your community. Okay, I'm trying to monitor the chat, but I don't see anything. Petra, let me know if you see anything. Okay, I'm gonna move on. So let's talk about the agenda. So we have intros and share out. We did that. Let's talk about why it's important to vote, who, how, and when, and we'll have some time for elections. Q&A. So why is it important to vote? And I'd love to hear from a voice that I haven't heard. Let's go with Melissa. Hi, Melissa. I want to hear, what is your reason? Why is it important for your communities to vote and the population that you represent?
It's important for all Menlo College students to vote because they are the young people whose futures are being decided.
Good. Thank you, Melissa. Why don't you popcorn it over to another person?
Sure, how about Mary?
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm thinking about this. Well, I'm pretty much new to I've voted all the time, but now I'm starting to see the role of like communicating about it, like trying to get people educated and even people that are Democrat, like I am, sometimes getting that conversation started with them and figuring out how and why they vote and who would they vote for. Um, because I live in a building called Bonnie Bray Terrace. It's a seniors and disabled community in Belmont. And I was talking to the social services director, and she said that most people here already vote. And so I was like, oh, they already vote. Well, what does that mean? And I'm looking to hear what that could mean. Like, how do you have sometimes I find it's really hard to have a conversation with people that are already voting. Like, it's sometimes more difficult than just like getting people that are just not voting. I don't know, I'm just curious. I'm all new to this, so I'm just willing to learn and willing to communicate, and maybe starting off with my building will be a really good thing. There's 154 residents, so that's pretty substantial. So that's where I'm planning to start.
Well, thank you, Mary. Yeah, we welcome everyone at any
Mhm.
stage of their process to get involved and also start talking about elections. It's so important and at a community level. So thank you, Mary, for doing that work. Thank you, Melissa. Who I am looking for one other person who would like to talk about why it's important for their population that they work with. And please introduce yourself if you're able to when you are answering a question. People want to hear, not everyone's familiar with the kind of work that you all do. So introduce your name and organization. One more person, Jesse. Good, Jesse.
Yes,
Why-
hi.
Hi.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jesse Clyde Burleson from Legal Services for Prisoners with Children and All of Us are None, representing the incarcerated and formerly incarcerated population. Since Prop 17 passed, people on parole can vote. People in county jails who have yet to be convicted can also vote. And I think that, that population, when it comes to voter turnout, is underrepresented, and that our focus in that area is already underway to register formerly incarcerated people and people in county jails, but getting them to vote, getting them to participate has been a challenge. And so I think that, it's important that they, get involved, understand the democratic process, what they have to gain by participation. And I think that, knowledge will propel them forward. And I forgot the second part of your question.
No, that is perfect. Jesse, thank you so much for raising your hand and giving voice to those that you represent. I really appreciate it. So it's important. I see one more hand, but there's going to be future opportunities to get involved. Lisa, you will be on the next one. So why is it important to vote? So March is called the primary election, but some county level and below contest will be decided in March, and elections may be decided in small margins, so every vote counts. And as some people were describing, their population may not have been involved in previous elections, so it's really important for them to get involved in this election. And then I gave some examples of some elections that came close. So like an election in Woodside was decided by 5 votes, so every vote means something and it counts. So that's the message to get out there, why it's important to vote to each of your community members. And in San Mateo County and across California, Latinx, Asian, and youth vote at significantly lower rates than white and older voters. So some of you may have represented in the past or do now some of those populations. So it's important to emphasize the importance for them to vote. Let's move on to the next thing. So who is eligible? Who can tell me Lisa, I saw your hand raised, but if somebody else or Lisa, you want to answer, who can tell me what are some misconceptions about who can vote? Or what are some questions that you have about who can vote? Oh, it's clear. Everyone knows exactly who can vote, not only because it's on my slide, but because you all are informed. I see Bill. Bill, go ahead.
So, I run into a lot of questions about citizenship. I run into questions about people who've recently moved here from another location. I run into questions from people in high school that I'm educating all the time that they can't vote until they're 18. They don't realize they can register prior to that. The gentleman, Jesse, that's working with people who've been incarcerated, I've run into a lot of people on the street. They automatically tell me they can't vote because they're a felon, and I try to educate them to that. So a variety of issues come up in my outreach. Thank you.
Oh, well, Bill, that is perfect. That's a good summary of
I'm sure there's more.
yes, thank you. I saw one more hand, but may have been captured by Bill's comments. Okay, I'm not seeing another hand. I will move on. So yes, that is correct. So the U.S. citizens and residents of California can vote 18 years or old or older on election day, and people who are not currently serving a state or federal prison term for conviction of a felony. And then those who are not currently found mentally incompetent to vote by court. So
And if you're 16 or 17, you can register.
you can pre-register. That is correct, Bill. And that's something that YLI, who is on the call, is constantly reminding people because they work with youth. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So how to vote. Here I have the ways that you can vote. You can vote by mail. If there's no stamp, no problem. You can track your ballot, SMC vote. Actually, .gov, I need to update that. Sarah has made it very clear that that's the new website. You can also drop off your ballot at a secure Dropbox or vote center. And for vote center locations, you can go to smcvote.gov and you can vote in person. Some folks love to vote in person. I am one of those people. I love to go in person. So you can also check out vote center locations on smcvote.gov. And there's also remote accessible vote by mail. Which you can also do that and work with the elections office to figure out and learn more about how you can vote. Any questions on this slide? If not, I will move on.
Yahira,
Yes, Julie?
I think it's important to say that you can vote up until 8 o'clock at night on voting day, and your vote will be counted. A lot of times we hear, especially in federal elections, when the polls have closed, and you think that you can't vote anymore once the polls are closed. But California, 8 o'clock comes later than it does on the East Coast, and you can keep voting. The other thing to know is that your vote will not be counted immediately. So anything you hear, right? But maybe you have another slide about that.
That's good information. Thank you. Bill, I see your hand.
I would just add to that, if you are in line, I've seen situations where you're in line, it's after 8 o'clock. But if you're in line waiting to get into the vote center and that line extends out the door, they have to allow you in to vote. So they will come to the end of the line. They will mark where the line ends at 8 o'clock. But if you're outside, that you shouldn't walk away and think you can't vote. You've been standing in line. You have a legal right to vote.
Okay, thank you, Bill. If Sarah, if you have any additional comments, if not, I will move on from this slide. No, great. All right, so when to vote. So on Monday, February 5th, 3 vote centers will open and you can check all the locations for any of these vote centers on smcvote.gov. On Saturday, 9 vote centers will open, and then all 45 vote centers will be open Saturday, March 2nd through Tuesday, March 7th. And as you all know, Tuesday, March 5th, as Julie mentioned, at 8 p.m. is the last time you can vote. And vote by mail ballots must be postmarked on or before Tuesday, March 5th. And they have.
Hang on. Yahira,
Yes, Julie?
Which date is wrong? Is it the one with the gray circle or the one with the black circle?
Which,
So that says Tuesday, March 7th. The other one says Tuesday, March 5th. Which one is it?
Tuesday, March 5th. Thank you, Julie.
Okay. Thank
Yes,
you.
let me go back. Apologies for that. It should be Tuesday, March 5th here. Okay, and then this date is wrong for Memorial Day, so please ignore that. Any questions on when to vote? No, and then all this information that I'm covering will be on the election toolkit as well. All right, let's talk about common reasons ballots are rejected. What are some other reasons that folks have seen the ballots have been rejected in the past? Or what are some things that you don't understand about ballot rejections? Any questions about that? I see a nods. No, okay, okay. Okay, Sarah, let's talk about, oh, I see a hand raise. Maybe Diane. All right, go ahead, Diane.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, and maybe Sarah would as well, is San Mateo County tries very hard to accept all ballots. So if something does get rejected when the ballot goes through the machine that reads the signatures, real human beings basically get that signature and spend a lot of time to try to get it to get verified. So that's another thing you can tell, but it's not just immediately rejected. It has to be reviewed by I think it's two people.
Well, total of 3.
Total of 3. Thank you,
If,
Sarah.
I mean, if the second person says it's good, then you don't have to continue.
Okay, thank you for the context. I see some new faces. Bill, do you have a quick comment?
Yes, people, it's probably already known, but you can turn a ballot in for somebody else who's unable to do that. They simply sign to allow you to do that, and they have to, their ballot has to be accepted at the polls.
Yeah, and there's the languages behind the ballot if you want to learn more. And Sarah can give us more information. Joanne, go ahead.
One of the questions I've gotten is how picky are people with the signature does not match? I know that sometimes people are like, okay, well, I signed my ID when I was 16 and I had a certain signature then. And so let's say it's, it's been like 4 years and like your signature is changing or it's getting neater. How picky is that? So like, how do I answer that question?
I'm going to say they never get neater. That we're not very picky. I mean, we're looking for like one letter, like maybe the first letter of your first name or the first letter of your last name to match your registration. And again, if it doesn't, we're going to send you a letter. And if we have your email and your phone number, we'll contact you those ways also.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. All right, Colleen, please introduce yourself.
Hi, Colleen from Coastside Farmers Markets in Half Moon Bay and Pacifica. Similar question about the signature. It's just, I guess if you are to redo your signature, you would be doing that at the DMV.
You don't have to do it at the DMV. I mean, yes, we do get that signature, but you can also re-register on paper, send us so that we have a new signature.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. Mark.
Hi, I mean, just an example of how this works out in the real world, in a real life example. In 2022, we had a very close election in East Palo Alto before the city council, where Martha Berrigan ended up winning by 18 votes for city council over Webster Lincoln. And when I ran with Martha, I lost by about 175 for the second spot. And she won by like 18 or 20. And after the election, there were maybe 30 or 40 ballots that were rejected, and campaigns, including ours, were going around to people who we thought were, we had a time, and I'm sure there's people who know the exact timing on this, but I believe it was like 15 days or something to clean the ballots and get things like signatures matching fixed or getting ballots signed. And it ended up closing the gap from, I think she was ahead by 25 when the election closed, roughly there, and then it went down to 18 or so. But in close elections, this can really matter after, and if it's a very, very narrow percentage, you can sometimes make up some of the gap. Sometimes you can't, but it's interesting to see when you're actually in the game, seeing this happen in real time is very stressful. So
I can imagine. Thank you, Mark, for that example. All right, we're gonna move on, but just to talk through what's on the slide. If ballots are received after the deadline, all ballots must be postmarked by March 5th and must be received no later than 7 days after Election Day. The signature has to match, that's what everyone's referring to, and ballots can be rejected if the ballots are not signed. Oops, I went 1 second. Oh no, okay, here we go. If ballots are not signed. Let's go on to the next slide. So what's actually in the toolkit? And you'll see the Excel sheet after my presentation. So the election toolkit contains a trifold brochure. This is from the last primary election, but it's an example of what it could look like. We will include your logo on our toolkit and be able to print that out through the toolkit program. So that's the nice thing about receiving the toolkit is that it's branded with your logo. So it looks like you created it in partnership with us. And then so you'll receive the toolkit trifold brochure. We have it translated in Spanish, and we're hoping to translate it in Chinese. If there's another language that you're interested in, let me know. Let's talk through it. Let's figure it out. I want to get the population the right information for voting. You will also get future voter stickers and I voted stickers. They seem to be the hot trend for elections, and we're always excited about giving out stickers. The I voted makes sense, right? I voted, here's a sticker, yay. You post a selfie on your socials. And the future voter sticker is actually something that we created because we want to get younger folks involved. So if you work with younger populations, children, or anyone younger than 18, get them excited about voting. Those 16-year-olds that are pre-registering, that would be a good idea. You will also get FAQs, bookmarks, voter registration forms, and sample ballots. But all of the other information that'll be in the toolkit is what I'll be showing in the next slide. If you give me a second, let me pause the share. And I'll walk through some of the election materials that'll also be that can be requested for the toolkit. And all these election materials are provided by the election office. So let me do this and resume share. Can somebody go off mute and tell me what they're seeing?
Yes, we're seeing the first of my slides.
Amazing. Okay.
Thank you.
Great. So this is all the materials that Sarah has available for requests. We will not provide all these materials through the election toolkit. We will decide which ones will be the ones that we request through the elections office and include it in your toolkit, and you will all know what that is in advance. If you want additional materials, talk to me and talk to Sarah about them. So we have no party preference. Oh no, give me a second. No party preference, mailing postcard. This is just what goes out to folks. We also have a register to vote postcard. We have bookmarks available. These will definitely be on the toolkit. We love these. Quarter sheets will also be on the toolkit with information in English, Spanish, Chinese, Filipino, and Tongan. We have parole flyers, woohoo, which will also be on the toolkit for folks who need them, who work with these folks. And we will provide at least one sheet for the people like you who are leading groups and communities in this effort. And we will also have unhoused voting info. You will all receive at least one copy of this. If you're interested in the toolkit, let's see. Extra help, this is just an announcement from, this will not be in the toolkit unless you want to work for the elections office, you can request it. Advanced vote center lawn, this will also not be in the toolkit, but you can request it from the elections office. And a postcard to all voters. And here's sample social media messages and what's coming up. Let's see. And here are some Secretary of State materials, which you can print out from the Secretary of State. Let me go back to our presentation. Any questions on any of those materials? Sarah, do you want to elaborate anything? Did I miss anything? If not,
The last slide had the social media toolkit from the Secretary of State. It's available in 9 languages, and it has some basic graphics. But if you say, I want the Spanish ones, it's like a 26 megabyte file because it has all the graphics. So hoping that maybe we have a Google share or a Dropbox I can send it to if you need any of the languages.
yeah, and just to let everyone know, in the follow-up email to this meeting, you will get the recording to this meeting, the presentation, and all the materials that I shared, and the contact information for the people speaking today, so that you can get in touch and you have all the information, at least digitally. The people that want or are in the Toolkit program will receive it physically through the Thrive's printing grants. So let's go back to our presentation. I haven't seen questions, but if there are questions, please let me know.
Yes, I did have a question.
Yes,
I
go.
put something, this is Donna Rutherford. I did put something in the chat, and it was more than I wanted to write, but I would just like to say that I was at the election office yesterday and I requested a toolkit. However, Sarah wasn't in the office, so I couldn't get it. And the young man that helped me was very helpful, but I left without it. So are you giving those kits out physically like that, or is it just gonna come through the email like you mentioned just a little while ago?
Dana, great question. The toolkit, the election education toolkit that Thrive provides, you cannot find that at the elections office. This is our own program that Thrive hosts in collaboration with the elections office. The point of us working with the elections office is that you get the accurate information coming straight from the elections office to your community members. That's the purpose of going through us. The additional bonus is that we print out the toolkit for you. We co-brand it with your logos. And the whole purpose of that is so that you all have the right information to lead your communities in this effort. So Donna, you cannot find that at the elections office, but thank you for showing up in person. I'm sure the elections office likes a visit from community members. What you can find in the elections office is all the materials that I just showed in the last slide about all the materials the elections office has available, but you have to ask them and request them in advance before you show up, I'm pretty sure. Sarah, confirm, please.
Yeah, I've been typing things in the chat to answer that. It's very helpful if you let me know like the day before you're coming, because then I have your materials packed up and your name on an envelope. And if I happen to be in the ladies' room, someone in the front desk can give you your packet and you won't be sent away empty-handed. But if you do show up, you know, I mean, like yesterday, the only time I wasn't here was lunchtime. So I'm very sorry, Donna. I'm going to ask you to let me know what you wanted from our office and we'll deliver it to you since you had made the effort to come to us.
Thank you so much. That cleared up my confusion. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm sure it cleared up other people's confusion. So I hope that was very clear. And if you have other questions about that, let me know. There's time at the end to ask those kind of questions as well. Let's continue with our presentation. And so let's talk about voting for presidential candidates and crossover voting. Diane, this is your
yeah, I just love talking about no party preference. So you may want to move to the next slide.
Yes, of course.
So basically in California, The second largest political party is the no party preference party, meaning you have not selected any of the registered parties like Republican, Peace and Freedom, Democrat, whatever. So once every 4 years for the primary election, it's the only time where being a no party preference voter would require you to do some additional work if you want to vote for a presidential candidate. Because since you're not associated with a party, when you get your ballot, you'll notice there's nobody listed for president. You get every other, and you also didn't get the candidates for the central committee. So like the Democratic Central Committee and the Republican Central Committee. So things that are partisan related. You get every other office and every other proposition because California moved to the top 2 vote getters in the primary are the ones that move on to the general. So it's not a party-based, win the primary, move on to the general election. So again, this is only an issue once every 4 years in March. And again, one reason we do have the primary in March during presidential years is California got tired of having the primary kind of determine in terms of who the candidates were going to be, because our normal time for voting is in June for the primary. So if you are a no party preference voter and you want to vote for a presidential candidate, depending on what party you want to vote in, there's different things you can do. If you want to vote in the American Independent, Democratic, or Libertarian presidential primary, you fill out a crossover ballot request, which you can get at smcvote.gov. And I think that'll, I don't know if we're going to include one in the toolkit, but you have to basically make a request either online at smcvote.gov, or you fill out a paper and send it, or I think you can also call. If you want to vote in the Republican, Peace and Freedom, or Green Party primary election, you have to re-register for that party. So whereas in the other case, all you have to do is fill out this application and you will get a ballot that would include the presidential candidates for the primary for that particular political party. But again, like if you're no party preference and you want to vote in the Republican primary election, you have to re-register as a Republican. For the Democrat, American Independent, and Libertarian, you don't change your party affiliation does not change. So you would still, if you were registered as a Libertarian, you're still registered as a Libertarian, but you can request a Democratic ballot or anyone who wants to vote in any of those 3 parties' elections just have to request it. So again, it's very confusing. Luckily, we only have to deal with this once every 4 years. Are there any particular specific questions that I haven't covered?
What about U.S. Senate?
Again, it's only for the presidential primary, because again, for the Senate, it's the top 2 finishers, regardless of party.
So I could vote for anybody on the ballot.
Right. So again, if you're a no party preference voter, the only thing you will not see on your ballot is president. You get everything else.
Okay.
Because California has the top 2 finishers. Go ahead, please.
I have a question. If we're a top 2, why isn't the presidential election on the ballot if it's a top 2? I assume that you'd be able to vote whatever for president as well.
Well, again, because that's determined by national election law, whereas everything from U.S. senator and below is determined by the state. That's the reason why.
Interesting.
It's actually because it's the party that is choosing their candidate. You are not choosing you're not electing anybody. It's a party that's choosing a candidate. So unless you are part of that party, you don't get to vote.
But again, that's only for president.
Only
You
president,
can vote
yeah.
for any U.S. senator candidate, regardless of the party. But again, I think the reason why it's different is the state of California controls state level offices from U.S. senator down. Whereas president and vice president, that is done at the national level. And they're keeping it at, it's not the top 2 finishers, it's the candidate per political party. Does that explain it?
Thank you. Yeah, that's it for me.
Great. Okay, I saw one other hand, but I think your questions got answered. Thank you, Diane. Thank you, Petra, and thank you everyone who asked a question. Let's move on. We have a packed agenda. Let's see. So if you have any other questions, email me at yahira@thrivealliance.org. Email Sarah, and here's her email. I put a save the date down below. Voter Education Outreach Advisory Committee is going to be happening on Wednesday, February 7th, 9:30 to 11 a.m. virtual. If you're interested in talking about elections, want to know more, hear from the elections office directly, come to this VOC meeting on February 7th. The registration is not open yet, but you will all receive an invitation to register in the follow-up email. Okay, I will stop sharing. Time for Q&A. If I was not able to answer any of your questions, now's your time to ask a question before we hand it over to our partner. And I will check the chat and see, make sure I didn't miss anything. Nope. Oh, maybe one, Paola. Let's see. What would be the best way to register folks at the door? For example, while out canvassing, are there links, QR codes we should use, or do you folks typically leave physical forms? Oh, okay. Paola, it sounds like you were doing maybe door to door. There are QR codes, and we do have that information on our toolkit. You can also easily go to smcvote.org and you can find the link to register there. Or if you're part of the toolkit program, you can also request as many registration forms as you need. The best way that I've heard from people, folks who have access to a phone who can scan a QR code, prefer that usually. There you go. registertovote.ca.gov is their direct link. Jesse.
Yes, as far as like registering someone like in person and they have a phone, let's say you don't have the QR code, can't you just go to like the government Secretary of State website and do the same thing?
Yes, that's what Sarah just put in the chat. Yes.
Right. And is there a difference? And where does the QR code on the materials take you to?
Usually, we guide everyone to go to us through smcvote.gov, but you can go directly to the website.
Okay. Thank you.
And I see a question from Bill. What is the best way to register people who are unhoused? If anybody has experience in the past working with the unhoused community, I would love to hear. If not, you will also receive the physical forms. I see someone, Sarah.
Yeah, you asked, Bill asked about unhoused voters. We do have an information sheet that goes through the process of, we need to have the person write the street they sleep on the most. I mean, like if you move around all the time, you kind of have to decide what, hopefully it's one area, say the street you live on the most and the cross street, so that we can give you a precinct so that you vote in the right area for your city council, for instance. And I can email you the info. I have it in the 4 languages. What else can I tell you about unhoused? They can get general delivery mail at the city post office, whichever main post office, Redwood City, Half Moon Bay only has one, for instance. San Mateo would be the main post office. I think those are the main points I can think of with unhoused. And of course, they can come after the close of registration, like anybody else, register in person and vote on the same day. So it takes care of it all.
I got a question on that, Sarah. So let's say I'm registering someone and we use the cross street as the address. We can do that online, or does that have to be written out?
That's a good question. Let me ask that while we're on this, and I'll get right back to you in chat.
Okay. If anybody else has, Betsy, I see a question from you.
I had a question about people that don't register by the deadline. Is there any way they can vote? Or Sarah, I sent you a question about provisional ballots. Are
Same day
they,
voting, same day register and vote. Come to our office, register, and you can't take your ballot with you. You need to vote at the time you're doing your same day voting, because we need to put the application with, you know, an envelope that has your ballot. Before we open that envelope with the ballot, we got to make sure that you're eligible to vote. You filled out the form, and then we can separate the application from your ballot.
thank you.
Question for Sarah.
Go ahead, Bill.
Sarah, on same day registration, people can go to any of the voting sites and register there as well as going to the tower.
Yes.
So any place, any open voting center, you can register there up until the day of the election.
Up until 8 p.m. or if you're in line, and we
Right,
get in
right.
after 8.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. If there are no other questions, I'm
going to yell to Hillary to get the answer to that question about online. Hold on.
Okay. Well, we do that. What is the time for the VIOC on February 7th? Thank you, Eric. It's from 9:30 to 11 a.m. virtual. You can register to vote and vote up to including election day and to any open vote center.
Okay. I got the answer from Hillary, our voter registration. What would be a good wizardtress? And she is the empress of registration, and says that even though it's it's not happy when you register online with cross streets, it ends up with us in pending, and we fix it. We make sure, you know, we can find those cross streets. It just, most of the ones online get activated, you know, pretty easily, quickly, but with cross streets, it's going to take a step, and it's no big deal. We'll take that extra step.
All right. Thank you, Sarah. One last question. Okay. What is the correct website? It's smcvote.gov. But if you type in smcvote.org, not to get confused, but you will also be directed to the same website. So it's smcvote.gov, and it will also be in the follow-up materials. Last question, Bill.
I guess it's a question again for Sarah. Sarah, if we have people that are homeless that are living in shelters, is there anything organized right now? Are those people being registered through the shelters where they're residing, or is that something we as voter outreach people should be visiting to ensure that people know they have a right to register and be able to vote?
In November 2022, our office went to the different shelters and offered the information to the shelter manager, or, you know, whoever was available at the time, leaving info on it and registration forms, but we didn't actually conduct one-on-one registration, because sometimes you have to be there at like evening hours perhaps, or very early morning. So we weren't able to necessarily do one-on-one. If you can, that would be terrific.
Okay, so as far as you know, there's nothing organized between the shelters and your office right now in terms of how people are getting registered?
Not our office, definitely not. But if a person who's unhoused signs up for benefits, say you sign up to, trying to think what the SNAP, the grocery card, I mean, at the very end of a packet of 50 pages, you get a page saying, do you want to register to vote? Yeah. Personally, I'm not sure I would have gone through the 50 pages if I wasn't looking for that form to see how they did it. You know?
Okay, so it's not, it just sounds like for us as outreach people, it's something that we could be exploring.
Certainly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Jesse, last question. We want to get to our partner content
I just want to know if you were going to have an announcement time in here, and the reason I'm asking is because I was going to ask if anybody was aware of AB 544, which is dealing with the county jail election issue that we were talking about a few months back. So I've been to Sacramento. I'll just announce it. AB 544, which is by Isaac Bryan, Assembly Member Bryan, is a bill that would establish voting centers and vote by mail drop boxes to be in the county jail statewide for eligible voters who are currently detained in the county jails. And so, if you didn't know about that, please support that and that effort. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jesse. Alrighty, this is all very, very exciting, and thank you all for participating. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for the announcement. Okay, yes, I will tell people I'll drop the link for the Toolkit sign-up sheet while we introduce our next speaker. All right, so I'll hand it over to Andrea, who can introduce herself. Where are you, Andrea? I need to spotlight you. Oh,
Also, the time check, right, is at 11. On a time check too.
yes, we're ending this training at 11:30.
Cool. So I just want to hi everyone. My name is Andrea Gill. I'm with Youth Leadership Institute, and we do a lot of social media campaigns with our young people to get the word out about election season, just because that is a large part of how we can reach voters, right, individually. And so I know all of us are working on voter education campaign, and I always just because we just have 7 minutes together, I just want us to I can lead us more about naming goals and challenges you may have and offering tools and tips around it. And just as when we think of social media campaign, right? One of the best ways as us as community members is to show our faces, to show our stories. Everyone, sorry, how do you wanna?
Yeah, we don't have 7 minutes. We have till 11:30.
Okay, my apologies. I thought it was till 11.
No worries.
Sorry, y'all. That was my bad. Okay, cool. So if you all can please drop your if you have an organization, a social media channel, please drop it in the chat. And that is a way we can really, or if any Facebook, yeah, like a Facebook group, thank you. And then any trusted channels you all use for voter engagement, right? Like anything, if you are following someone, who do you trust to always give that reminder out? I know for myself, there's this one Instagram called Civic Center, and then they are always constantly posting about deadlines, about everything. Okay, cool. Thank you all for dropping yours into the chat. I just want us to ground ourselves in that, because when it comes to building social media campaigns, tag your partners, tag your people who are in your area, because that way they can share your message out loud as well. And then they also have that trust. Okay, cool. All right, thank you for dropping. Continue, please dropping your Instagram handles, or if you're on TikTok, even LinkedIn, anything that you all see. Okay, cool. And then I want you all to think about what is a goal you have with building a social media campaign around voter engagement? What is your audience member that you would want to engage with? You all know your followers, or you all know your community that leans on you as well. And so I want you all to name a goal. Cool. And then while you're thinking, please type in a goal you have, and then also any challenges you may expect to have when thinking about how do I even use social media? Cool. Right. Thank you, Margie, for putting in. Carmen put audience is Latino immigrant community. Goal is to get them engaged in the process, right? Because the one thing around with social media, you can really share out on individualized message. The constant reminder we have as people, the more we're willing. Sometimes it takes 3 times to see a message for it to sink in. And so if we're constantly, all of us use our tools and our tactics to keep reminding folks to vote, where to vote, and who can vote. I think even like we shared knowledge around the unhoused community can vote as well, right? That's not a typical shared knowledge, but if we make a social media campaign, it increases more. And so that's one way of how really spreading. It's like a trusted messenger campaign. All of us are a trusted messenger in our community. When we post, you have folks who do look into it. And it's better when it comes from someone that they know, someone that they're familiar with. All right, cool. Thank you, Josh. Put to build power in our immigrant refugee community, accessibility to our legal services and organizing opportunities. Thank you, EPA, for dropping your Instagram. Challenges, fear of deportation. Right, looking into it. Okay. Yeah, sensitive information, right? It's like, well, you also want to, like, how do you express this? All this, we know that all this takes us like 40 minutes ourselves to get through all the knowledge around voter engagement. And so how do we put that into these mini bite-sized like campaigns? Think EPA neighbors is mostly Hispanic and then the majority of messaging in Spanish, right? And there are tools out there to help you translate for accessible. A challenge in making short video takes that youth to vote. Video is probably one of the most engaging way our brain, look at a video from like 10 seconds if we want to continue watching the video. So within that first 10 to 15 seconds, it takes. Okay, cool. Thank you all. All right, Lisa put in South San Mateo County to get our social media used by the public. We put candidate forums and info on ballot propositions on our YouTube channel and trying to have an active Facebook, Instagram page. But it's hard to keep active info on it without enough people. Yes. So we definitely look into analytics a little bit. And so thank you all for putting in your goal. I want you to keep dropping keep thinking about it because your goal is what your intention on is how you will build out your campaign. Okay. And I can move to the next one as folks were able to marinate on that. And then so when we think about content creation, it is curated versus curated. That's why I also had all of us drop in our social media handles as well. So please follow the folks who drop their Instagram handles in the chat, as that's a way for us to continue sharing knowledge within each other as well. So curated is content gathered from trusted sources relevant to our organization or topic area, which is voter engagement, right? And then created is when we produce the content ourselves, right? And I always like to say, you don't have to create all the content yourself. There is so much content out there, right? So you can always just like reshare buttons. There's always that amplify. That's why I tell you all, tag your partners. Because when you're tagged on social media, us ourselves can post it as our own. And so I always say a split is like 60-40. 60 is me reposting someone else's content, sharing someone else's resources, especially when it comes to, I'm thinking about like the day, like where are the polls, right? That's a great way. If you see someone else post about that, that's a great way to tune in. And then 40 is like our own content that we create. And then this year we're trying to do more of young people actually make videos ourselves or have them share their story of like why they want to vote and sharing their testimony, because what we found is like that voice does a lot more for engagement wise. We see that videos and that trusted messenger voice is a lot more engaged with on our social media platforms. Okay, and then cool. So then how we before we dive into it, I just want you all to think like, what is a message you want to commit to when thinking about creating content? I always like to think about, okay, what is one thing, right? So one of my example is that young people can pre-register to vote. Someone named it earlier. 16 and 17-year-olds can pre-register to vote. So that's one of the areas we want to tackle on with our social media campaign. So then that leads into who is our target audience right there is 16 and 17-year-olds in the county. And then in that, we want to do it more. Like, let's say like we're honing into like a daily city youth. We're honing into youth from San Mateo. And then language wise, I always think about like if you know we all there's such a diverse community we have here. And so I always like to write out what I'm going to say, and then I will translate it to other languages. So then that way when we create our content, it's already there. I always like to have it prepped of whatever I would like to amplify is already has initial brainstorm. And then I think about what kind of media am I gonna do? Am I gonna do a flyer, right? We have beautiful flyers that you had already made. We have, but if you want to do something just for your region, right? If you want to add community photos of like, you want to add your own organization photos. And then I think about maybe a square graphic, the one you see on Instagram typically, or a video or a reel is another type of media that you can use. And I think about how often do I want to post, right? So then the goal is always, my goal is to always at least 3 to 5 in a week. And that's the same with resharing someone else's post and then creating my, like amplifying my own post. So that's my typical goal. And I want y'all to think about, and that helps you to keep on track of when you build your social media campaign, you want to think about how often do you want to post, and then when do you want to post? Typically during lunch breaks, right? Everyone think about like your own substance, even use social media. Do you use it like typically when you're on lunch, or do you typically use it maybe after evening when downtime? And so that's when you can actually engage folks right then and there. Okay, cool. And then that's just how to brainstorm like creating content right here, because our goal is to really educate folks in our community around how they can vote and where they can vote, and especially the deadline. So all of this is needs to always have a continued flow of of building this campaign. Cool. And please drop any questions you have in the chat too. Okay. And then, so how many, I just want to do a show of hands, or if you're able to, how many of you all are like working towards building a social media campaign or building flyers? And if you are familiar with Canva, just drop it. Maybe put a chat, like a 1 is like, I've never used Canva before. 5 is like, I'm an expert. I know exactly where all the tools are. Okay, cool. Thank you, Josh. Okay, 2. Okay, we have a little mix. So I put Canva here because it is free and it's really user friendly. So you exactly know where everything's at. It has a lot of great templates as well. You can create a lot. It's really user friendly and they're always evolving their ways as well. Cool. Mark, I see. Did you have a question? You were just raising it. Cool. Sorry about that. Okay, cool. So I see so now I'm gonna go into a little Canva tutorial right now. And then I'll actually, if someone wants to be bold enough, we can actually create a flyer today using Canva. And then this is just some tips and tricks with anytime we use type building. Keep it simple. Don't overcrowd your flyer, graphics, and text. People need to be able to read it, and more importantly, they have to want to read it, right? Every time when I tell young people around civics, they're kind of give me like, ooh, like what is like, why are you saying civics to me? Like they sometimes they don't like that word. So now I realize, okay, like even like the language I hold, right, is I have to the audience. So then when I say like community organizing, or I say vote, like voting is a lot more versus when we talk about civic engagement. And so then I want you to think about like, we always want to play, if you want to play with fonts, that's okay. But don't go too wild with fonts, as it may be difficult to read. And then like, I always like to test. I think sometimes testing what fonts to use, they have a variety, and it's always like, are you able to read it? And am I able to read it far away, right? And then with social media too, when you have like an infographic, it is good to keep it simple too, even on the flyer. Don't overcrowd the little square, because not everybody can actually like, go in depth with it. So even with social media, like graphics, like sometimes we won't have an event, it's always good to just like have like keep simple to details to remind folks, and then do a carousel where you add multiple graphics at a time. Yeah, people do have short attention span now these days. So it's always like how, you know, vibrant content is what really stands out. And then that goes into color. Like, don't be afraid to play with colors when you're creating something. A general rule you want to stick with is a color palette that'll be pleasing to the eye, right? So even with voter education, we always do like red, white, and blue. And even our young people, sometimes we're just like, I don't know about always doing red, white, and blue. And they want to do purple. They want to do a little like add another type of color. And then so that's just a way to like always you know, keep it fresh as well. And then with Canva, you are able to, they have it right there too, where you can actually look at color palettes that's already pre-made. So you don't have to search for it. Or if you have organization colors, you can program it like we did. But this is our wildlife colors, and we already have it programmed it, so we don't have to search for it every time we make a flyer. And then these are just a little bit more tips, things to remember. Like white spaces is your friend. Leave white spaces between all images, text box. Make sure it gives a very clean look and professional. Make sure everything is even and matches, as white spaces borders should be the same width, and font should always be consistent. And then always work smarter, not harder. You can always duplicate text boxes, and we're actually going to go into that right now of how you can use that tool. And then this is just another tidbit, is that like you can on Canva, this is great. We could group them together. They have a position. All these is like what you'll be using is and I can actually go through that right now. But find the template you like, and you can build off of it. And then familiarize yourself with all the different Canva tools, because they are a lifesaver. You don't have to like, you know, do a little no, like you can just grab it all and then customize it. Okay. And all these slides will be shared with you all too. And then please let me know if y'all have any questions, or if anyone, now we're going to go into like building a flyer together, and I would like someone to help out with building a flyer. If anyone wants to think about like, okay, they know they want a flyer to be made or a social media graphic, and then we can build one together all together. Do we have any volunteers? Okay, Colleen.
Hi. What about doing the 16, the register to vote, the pre-register, since you already kind of mentioned that?
Yeah.
And that's kind of an easy demographic to try and play with.
Yeah, we actually had, I can actually show you all this one we made for cool. So okay, so now now I switch over to us using Canva. And then, so right here, I actually will time out if folks also, so we had one right here, it's like pre-register to vote, under 18-year-olds, think ahead about your future. And we're very big on like using QR codes. So we use QR codes on flyers especially. So try to make them as big as possible to scan ahead. And then we just add, it's very simple, right? It's like not taking the attention, is right then and there.
Would you lock the pre-register, the 2 in the vote and the red block? Maybe lock those all together and make them a little bigger so that it fits that space.
Cool. Yeah, so let's do a group, right? You would group them together, and then you can always adjust this as well.
Yeah, group the pre-register vote and the 2 in the red block, but also it looks like it's not centered.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that was on purpose, or
Yeah, exactly, right here, right? So you could do all of this. You could do, so exactly what Colleen just mentioned right now is around center. So I was able to grab these all together in one, and then you can play around with this as well, and then position right here. So then right here, they center it right here for you, and so it's all even right here. And
It looks
so
like, sorry, there's an extra space on the end of pre-register in your
Yeah.
copy as well as vote. And so I think that's making it not center exactly. If you just do delete, it'll go to and add the E. Yeah.
Mhm. And so right here, when we use, okay, thank you. Right here, we got it, right? It looks
Yeah.
a little bit more centered, and all of this is, right, is all these tools. So then one of the biggest eye detail is being able to make sure it aligns all together. Because sometimes when you are focusing too much on the word, like I always tell people, please double check my lines, because sometimes I'm in the design too much and it's not as, and then size 1C. Okay, and then this is what's cool about Canva as well, is that you can resize it, right? So if you want to make it into an Instagram story right here, they have it right here for you. And then you can continue, just continue. We can copy and resize. So now it's something where we could just post on just our story. And then it's the same type of language. And then this is where we would probably have to make it bigger. So so then this is all right. I didn't have to make another story. We just created, we use one from our old one. And then same here, we could put it up a little bit more. And then with Instagram stories, I like to leave room in the middle, so I could add a link right here. Because on Instagram, you can add a link on the actual story, and then people can press it. So that way it's at the focus point of your graphic right here. And then, so then anytime you want to create a new one, you can create a design right here. And then I always just try to do US letterhead as 8.5 to 11. And then right here is when you can search for templates right here. So I would do voter education. And then, what is it? Probably because it went to US letterhead. Sometimes for flyers, you have more. Okay, we'll do this one. And then you can search voter education, right? And then all of these templates you can use right here at your disposal. And then, so see right here, even we have different color palettes you can use, and like register to vote. And sometimes you can also see like, there's a lot of refuse to be silenced. That's something that I even caught right now. That's a trend. One thing around voting of trying to make a social media campaign, you also want to use like what's trending right now to grab people's attention as they're maybe familiar with it. And Sarah asked, can you import a graphic not made on Canva and then resize it for Instagram? Yeah. So then right here is when you can actually upload all these so we had our template. Let's work on. Okay, so we had our template right here, right? And then maybe it was like, let's just have exercise your right to vote. And then I want to add a photo right here. And then I can add any of these uploads right here. So this is when you can add your own photos here, and then you can drag it right then and there. So let's say I'll use this one. And then I would say a story like why, like maybe someone want to point out like why should we vote, right? Figure out how to ask that in the beginning. Maybe it's them. Vote for those who can't vote. That's one of my youth say all the time. Right. And you can add that as a placer right here. And so this is other ways. And if you want to resize it. Okay, cool. And then also, this is a cool feature I wanted to show you all on Canva itself. You can actually go from any language right here. So if you have different communities, and they'll translate it for you right then and there. And so open flyer, and then it's right here, the language. And then the same, like what we did with Colleen earlier, is that just always make sure it looks like, if we want to mess around with how it's formatted, to make sure all of it is, you know, aligned, centered with each other. Yeah, and that's a really cool feature that we use typically, because oftentimes we may have different communities that we want to reach, but maybe we don't have the capacity as well to work on individual flyers. And then, does anyone have any questions around Canva? And then these were just some others that we actually did in the past. This is actually, we went to Menlo College and got to speak with Melissa's student. And then the audio, and this is actually featured, we can feel it.
Hello, everyone. I am Diana Guardado, a Menlo College, and today, senior at the Menlo College Civic Engagement Coalition has organized our amazing election party, as you can see in the back. And the reason why we are doing this is because we want to increase voter turnout on our college campus. We have around 800 students, and we want them all to get out and vote. We recognize the power of community engagement, and the moment we as a collective start voting and advocating for the issues that tap into our college campus, that is when our elected officials start listening to our voices. So that is why we are pumped to get students to register and to get politically active. So really excited to continue expanding this operation on a larger scale.
And then that was, and then we also try to do a little just like, okay. And I see we're almost, we're at 11:20. And so I will jump back into just talking about analytics. Hopefully that was helped you all a little bit. Just think of like, you know, like brainstorm different ways you can use Canva. And then it was like a little small tutorial for you all, but there are definitely so many features on there. And then cool. Are you all seeing?
And that was wonderful, and a lot of people really appreciate it, especially myself. I see 2 questions before you move on to the next thing. I'm not sure if you're able to see the questions, but I will always uplift them. So I see Colleen and Mark have their hand raised.
Okay. And then Mark, yeah.
Oh, yeah, this is Mark. One thing that I think folks have to recognize about social media is that if there's no one responding to something you put up, it will not get distributed. It will not show up in the stream. So there was a guy in East Palo Alto, asking me and mocking me for liking my own post on Nextdoor, right, which is one of the local ones. And this was a post that eventually got like 438 likes. It was the message that East Palo Alto didn't have any murders last year in 2023. And it eventually took off and got lots and lots of people liking it. And the more people who like it, the more distribution it is. So if you're going to do a post, it's really good to message, even if it's like 4 or 5 people, just to link to it and say, like it, because that's how it gets distributed. You can have the best video, the best image in the world, but if there's no engagement, the algorithm will not work for you. So just that's a, something very, very basic, but super important. And I hope people recognize that. So when you do a post, send it out to your, group of like 100 people, say, hey, could you like this on Facebook, Nextdoor, Instagram, whatever, and you'll get more response.
No, thank you for uplifting that. And that's why I said tag your partners, because then that's automatic engagement when someone is tagged into it as well. And then Canva is free. I saw that question from Jesse. There's just different features for premium. And then these were another just tools because I have trouble posting. So I use a social media calendar. And then so I use Later, it's $18 a month, but there's also a free trial in this. So I just want to tell you all, utilize free trials. And then there's Hootsuite. I know people have used Buffer or Sprout Social. So this is just ways where they can like post it ahead of time. If you're just not, maybe it's just a little bit more of a hassle. And in editing tools, I just uplift is Canva and Adobe stock. And Adobe does have also already social media templates to go as well. And then these are just tips. Videos receive the more engagement than infographics sometimes. Sometimes sad because sometimes I work on infographics for so long. And then just uplifting trusted messenger, sharing community member testimony of like why they vote is a great strategy to build trust. And then just always think about times of when to post. And then just here going back what Mark said about analytics, right? Is like analytics help you identify success and failures, help us target right audience, reach new audience as well, and improve our current strategy. And they can tell you the best time to post, adjust our strategy to better reach our target audience, and see what posts perform the best and find a way to increase this post type as well. And then always take a step back and identify measurable goals as well when looking over analytics. And you can find them on if you use any type of social media, like any type of, they will always be there and I can do an email about that. And then just want to say, when you're looking at analytics, you see what content is performing well by looking at these 3 items: impressions, the number of times your content is displayed, right? Reach is the number of people who see your content. And then engagement is the number of people of interaction your content receive users. So likes, comments, shares, saves. So we would want to cross our fingers that people are saving our content, right? Because we have valuable information on where to vote and how to vote. And then so we always say a passive engagement is just like likes and views, but when they're actively engaging, commenting, sharing, and saving, that you know that their content is being reached and absorbed. Cool. And then I think just like lastly, we just want to uplift if you all have any strategies and tactics you all have used to amplify your message. And just as a sharing, I know like ads can be like ads is the way to go. I know for voter education, it has to be like Meta has to approve them, and then there's the approval process that goes through. So yeah, just want to have you all, if there's any strategies and tactics you all have used to amplify your message.
I would love to say that I think the tagging partners is really helpful, but also interacting with your partners' social media messages is also really helpful, because then you create an expectation and a community that interacts with each other and supports each other on a different level. So if you're from a nonprofit organization or individual on social media, interact with the partners that you collaborate with. That they're needing as much interaction as you are. So it's always helpful to do that.
Cool. Thank you, Melissa, for dropping videos get more engagement than photos. Photos get more engagement than text. That's a good way to roll them. Alrighty. So I can give it back to Yahara, but I just want to thank you all. I know it was like kind of rushed. So if you need anything, like any further assistance, here's just my contact information. And then this is just our website that YLI.org. Cool. Thank you all. I appreciate it. I'll drop my contact into the chat.
Woo! Andrea, that was wonderful. I really enjoyed that. And I could tell it's a fan favorite. Andrea is also part of our VIOC, and she has done several presentations in collaboration with Thrive. And we are always so excited to have you. But this content, you can't get it anywhere. This level of attention to detail. Thank you, Andrea, for everything. I will include all your information in the follow-up email, which you should all receive very soon. To close it up, I want to let you all know that I put the link to sign up for the toolkit in the chat. The deadline to sign up is morning of Wednesday, January 24th. And that's because we want to print them out and get them to you. I'm going to share my screen. We have 2 minutes. I'm going to show you all the information I need from you if you want this toolkit. I need your organization, your name, last name, email, phone number, and an additional contact. This is very important because sometimes, you know, you leave out of office and I'm not able to contact you. We're not able to get the materials to you on time. If you're interested in the stipend, it's nice to know what you want it for, but usually people use it for, you have to use it for this election, right? Whether it's printing out more materials or there's a variety of ways you can use the stipend. But you have to be affiliated with a nonprofit organization. And if you're an individual who's just starting out with community members, talk to me, we can figure it out. What languages you need for the toolkits, materials, the address we're delivering on Thursday, February 1st. This is very important. If you ask for printed materials, you have to give us an address to send them to. And then I put some times that we're doing deliveries. Please allocate the best time that you're going to be in the office at that address, or whether it's a home address. I've delivered to homes as well. Put the best time to be there on that date, because if you're not there, we're not able to get you your materials. And then clarify what languages, how many you need for each language. This is talking about the trifold brochure, how many future voter stickers you need, how many I voted stickers, and what kind of election office materials you need. I put in here an example. The first line is my example of what I would request if I was somebody else. I said I wanted 20 of each: bookmarks, quarter sheets, and registration. Know that each toolkit will have materials, but for example, here someone requested 150 bookmarks. That makes it very explicit that you want 150 bookmarks. I will try to get those to you, right? And lastly, which is very important, if you want materials to be branded with your logo, you have to upload your logo here. If not, they will just be branded with the Thrive logo if your logos are not in here. So please insert your logo into the Google folder. The last day to do this is by Wednesday, January 24th. Is there any questions? No, I see some head shakes. Okay, I feel like everyone understands. If you've messaged me in the past about wanting the toolkit, please fill out this form. It's still important and it has all the information I need to get the toolkit to you. So if you've told me in the past you want the toolkit and I told you that I'll be adding you to a list, you are on that list, but this Excel sheet tells me exactly what you need and what I need to get to you the materials that you need. So please fill it out. I've gotten questions about, oh, there's multiple people on this call that work in the same organization. Only one person has to fill it out, but put the additional contact information in that slot that I went through. Okay, so I will stay on 1 extra minute too if you have any additional questions, but if not, I'd love to formally close it out. Thank you all for joining me today. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you to all our partners. Thank you, Diane and Sarah, for being here. Thank you all for participating and showing up and being excited for elections. See you all very soon. See you at the VIOC on February 7th at 9:30 a.m. Bye-bye.
Yay. Let's see here.